The German UFO theories describe supposedly successful attempts to develop advanced aircraft or even spacecraft prior to and during World War II. Elements of these claims have been widely incorporated into various works of fictional and non-fictional media, including video games and documentaries, often mixed with true information. The aircraft what you can see here is the Avro Canada Avrocar. It was a VTOL aircraft developed as part of a secret US military project carried out in the early years of the Cold War. In the air, it would have resembled a flying saucer. Originally designed as a fighter-like aircraft capable of very high speed and altitude. Development was taken over by the US Army for a tactical combat aircraft requirement, a kind of high-performance helicopter. The Avrocar was a disc-shaped aircraft with the same basic shape as a frisbee, the upper surface of the disc being fairly curved. Power for the rotor was provided by 3 jet engines attached. Each engine had its own fuel and oil tank and other support systems. Although it was expected these would be interconnected in future models. The vehicle was manned by a crew of 2, positioned in separate cockpits, squeezed into empty areas in the airframe. In practice, only one pilot was usually on board during testing. A number of flights were made with an observer in the second cockpit as well. In flight testing, the Avrocar proved to have unresolved thrust and stability problems that limited to a low-performance flight. Finally, the project was cancelled in 1961. It is a little-known fact, however, that the project team leader was a German scientist. Dr. Richard Miete, who produced many different Flugscheiben or flight discs during the early 1940s. Actually, Germany started to develop flying discs from the late 1930s. In July of 1938, a farmer named Arthur Sack entered his circular-winged model in a German competition for motorized flying models. The model had poor flight characteristics. However, the president of the competition showed interest in Sack's design and encouraged him to continue his research into circular wing aircraft for possible use as an observation or even attack aircraft. Sack went on to build 4 additional models, with each increasing in size, before building the full-sized prototype as the AS-6V1. It was built in January of 1944. The aircraft was built with the landing gear, cockpit and pilot seat from the Messerschmitt Bf-109B. The wing structure was made of plywood. 5 flight attempts were conducted, but the aircraft failed to achieve flight. In the summer of 1944, Jagdgeschwader 400, so Fighter Wing 400, relocated to the same airfield, flying the new Messerschmitt 163 Comet. Confident that the jet pilots were more experienced than the pilots previously available to him, Sack asked for a new test pilot for his aircraft from the fighter wing. They made one final flight attempt, this time with Oberleutnant, so First Lieutenant Franz Rossle, at the controls. Once again, the aircraft made only a short hop, resulting in a collapsed landing gear leg. Rossle suggested that Sack send his design to the Messerschmitt company for proper development, but Sack refused. The AS-6 was damaged in an Allied air attack before Zak had a chance to make further improvements, and the aircraft was likely scrapped soon afterwards. By the time the US troops arrived at Brandis in April of 1945, no traces of the AS-6 were left. Of course, Zak was not the only one who tried to create a disc-like aircraft. Development work began in August of 1943 with the BMW Flugelrad 1V1 at the Czech aerodrome near Prague. In general appearance, the Flugelrad layout was of a central body housing a single pilot covered with a hemispheric dome surrounded by a disc blade rotor of 6 meters with a lower body housing a BMW 003 jet engine, fuel tanks and fixed landing gear of 4 legs fitted with wheels but no brakes. Only 2 German production aircraft used the 003. The first one was the Henkel 162A and the 4-engined Arado 234C reconnaissance bomber aircraft. Flight was achieved by jet exhaust deflection into the 16 disc blades. According to reports, it could lift to 1 meter and fly for 300 meters before making a hard landing. The first design was very crude. To work proceeded on the second prototype designated BMW Flugelrad 1 V2 in 1944. This time the cockpit was enlarged to house 2 pilots and serve as a support for the addition of an aerodynamic rudder for better control. The fixed landing gear was replaced with a more practical semi-retractable one. Rotor diameter increased to 8 meters but kept the 16 disc blades. BMW built another prototype designated BMW Flugelrad 2 V1 in 1945, which kept the same body. The disc rotor was enlarged to 12.6 meters. The first test flight was again performed at Prague in February of 1945 with another jump but without the ability to actually fly. Meanwhile, in 1945, another BMW Flugelrad prototype was under construction and many have possibly flown during April of 1945. This was the BMW Flugelrad 2 V2, which was powered by 2 BMW 003 jet engines located in the lower body side by side. The cockpit was enlarged for a crew of 4 and rotor diameter increased to 14 meters with 24 disc blades. The final model, the BMW Flugelrad 3, was in the design phase and would have been the anticipated production model, a huge stratospheric reconnaissance aircraft powered by 2 jet engines, one engine mounted over the other in an upper and lower body. The upper and lower body would accommodate 6 crew members, an enlarged 24-meter rotor with 32 disc blades, fully retractable gear, and room for an array of cameras, including infrared types. Nevertheless, all work ceased on the Flugelrad development program in the Soviet advance. According to the order, all prototypes and documentation had to be destroyed. So most of these Flugelrads could just barely hop, but a huge amount of data was collected during the flight tests. The US Third Army reached the Czech city of Pilsen in April of 1945. This city is only 90 kilometers away from Prague. So I think it is very likely that some of the documentation was saved by Dr. Richard Miete, who was also working in Prague on the Flugelrad aircraft. He could have made a deal with the US forces, and that is how Avrocar started to develop its flying disc. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel.